this is today's, yes, oh, it worked. So this is today's agenda. So first, of course, welcome. We're going to go through what is the AUEU Youth Lab, so to give you a bit of context. Then we're going to dive with my colleague Rose, who's here as well. She's our grant coordinator. What are the innovation grants? Then we're going to go through how to apply. I'm going to walk you through the ON Grip platform, which is the platform where you can submit your application. We're going to see how to build a successful application. Then we're going to dive into the budgets to see how we can make that meta budget that is clear and strong for your application. And we're going to walk you through the next step. And at the end, there was some time for Q&As. There will be also some moments through the session to check in to see if everything is going well. So please feel free to say so. Next slide, please. Thanks. Next slide again, Sushita, please. All right. So what is the AU Youth Lab? So it's an initiative that was created by European Union and the African Union. So they put forward the AU Youth Lab. It's a program that was built on the success of previous initiative, the AUEU Youth Plug initiative, but also the Youth Cooperation Hub. And it's really resulting of extensive consultation with a lot of young people from both continents, the African and the European. And the objective of this the AU Youth Lab is to contribute to the empowerment of youth in Africa, but also in European Union, to strengthen their involvement in active and meaningful way, but also innovative. So we have three pillars. This program is based on three pillars, which is participation and representation, empowerment and capacity building, and youth initiative. Next slide, please. The AU Youth Lab has two labs, actually. So there is one lab, which is the AU Youth Voice Lab. It's the power of the collective. And there is the AU Youth Action Lab. We are here for the AU Youth Action Lab, but let me just introduce briefly the Youth Voice Lab. So the Youth Voice Lab is really focused on advocating for youth, like really giving a voice to youth. So they have an app. They also provide training. They do also have some grants. They have smaller grants for advocacy and representation. And now we're here for the Youth Action Lab, which is a different program, but part of we're sister programs. This program is really based on regranting to youth organization. So in the upcoming 3 years, we will regrant 110 grants from 5,000 to 50,000 euro. We will also accompany all grantees on a digital collaboration platform, and there is a strong emphasis on capacity strengthening. And then we will see when we talk a bit more about the innovation grants. Next slide, please. All right, so we have 4 types of grants under the Youth Action Lab. I'm going to try to speak a bit slower because I think maybe it was a bit too fast. So there is the cooperation grants. These grants are really for to bring youth-led initiative from both the African Union and also the European Union. And the grants is 50,000 euro. There is also the representation grant, which is here to amplify the voice of underrepresented youth change maker. At the moment, the grants are between 10 to 20,000 euro. Then we have the innovation grant. That's 1 second. Sorry about that. I have a barky dog. Then we have the innovation grant. That's why we're here today. It's really to drive bold and youth-led solution. The grants are between 30 to 50,000 euro. And then we have the entrepreneurship grant that we will also present this afternoon. There is a specific webinar about that if you want to join. And it's to enable youth-led enterprise, social enterprise, but also organization to grow and drive meaningful change. And the grants are also between 30 to 50,000 euro. Next slide, please. Oh, yes. Oh, before you take on, Susharita, just want to say that because I forgot to mention that. So we are a consortium. So some grants are led by European Youth Forum. So the cooperation grants are led by our partner, the European Youth Forum. The representation grant are led by our partner, Restless Development, and innovation and entrepreneurship grant are led by Oxfam. That's our colleagues here. Please, Susharita.
Amazing. I'm going to launch a little poll for us to check in. What do you think of the Youth Action Lab so far? Based on what my colleague Alice has shared, do you feel aligned to the motto of the Youth Action Lab so far? I see a lot of yeses. I see some I think so's, which is also fair. And I see the next question. Are you excited to learn more about the entrepreneurship grants? A lot of yeses. Amazing. I see a really, really positive response. I see that everyone is really aligned to our vision, mission, and motto, but also that they're really excited to learn more. Amazing. I'm going to end the poll now, and I'm going to hand it back to my colleagues. Rose?
Thanks, Sucharita, and thank you, everyone. Great participation. Glad you can all hear us. If I can ask you, Sucharita, to go to the next slide. And we are now going to really zero in on what are innovation grants. Just to recap, I'm sure most of you have already read the funding manuals, but I'm just going to zero in on the key issues pertaining to innovation grants. So you can walk with me as we go through the slide. The next one. So our innovation grants, we essentially aim to fund youth organizations that implement an innovation that is linked to a global challenge. So the key there is global challenge. The innovation has to be linked to a global challenge. And we do admit that innovation is a broad term. And normally when we think about it, it's often mistaken as only relating to something that is completely new, or perhaps something that is focusing on a new technology. So usually when we think about innovation, we immediately think about new technologies. But in this case, and for this grant type, we look at innovation as something that is so much more. And so with innovation grants, we are defining innovation as designing, testing, scaling, improving a new or even an existing activity for young people in their own context with long-term impact. In other words, we're looking for an impact that will benefit your community and your peers even after the grant period has ended. And so not that we're looking at innovation as designing, testing, scaling, and improving something that's new or existing. And so some of the activities in terms of examples that we can give you around innovation grants, we categorize this into three categories. The first one is where you are putting together an innovative activity around meaningful youth participation in decision making. We know that that is one of the global challenges that young people face in terms of interacting with policymakers and participating in decision making. So you could have a project around that. And here we're looking, for example, at a methodology that you could come up with, something new, something vibrant that young people can monitor the commitment of decision makers in order to increase access to quality education. The second thing is we're looking at, you can have a project that's looking at implementation of a youth-driven solution. So for example, we're looking at implementation of a new climate resilience approach in your own context. So this could be something that you innovate, that you want to try out in your context, and something that can then be put to scale. Lastly, we're also looking at activities around sharing and scaling of a distinct activity with other youth organizations beyond your own context. So here you're looking at, coming together and putting together something that is a distinct activity that works for you and other young people. And so it's beyond your own context. For example, you might develop an online learning product on a global issue that you want to tackle. And so I think it's important to also just realize that in terms of the global issue, you can be looking at issues even around the SDGs, issues around the Agenda 2026. And so those are all the global issues that you can look at. And so with the innovation grant, we want to hear your ideas because it's broad, it's fresh, and we want to see what you come up with. Lastly, on this slide, you'll see that word intersectionality and a word cloud around that. And so what we're saying here is also, as you look at putting together your project proposal, intersectionality is something that's key. We all know that we don't live in isolation, and things don't happen in, straight boxes, as it were, but that a lot of things intersect together. And one of the things we have learned is normally funding partners would give us funding that is directly related to one theme. For example, you get funding that's just looking at climate change, or funding that's looking at sexual reproductive health and rights. But in this case, we are acknowledging that there are many intersectionalities and issues that affect young people from different thematic areas. And so this funding, part of the innovation is that you can actually come up with a project that has intersectionalities embedded in it. So it doesn't need to be just a straight jacket, but you can have different themes that you can work with. For example, you can have something around climate change and education that would work, and we would accept that. Moving on to our next slide, I think here we just want to talk about some of the eligibility criteria, which is very important for the innovation grants and all our grants. And so, before you apply, you need to check that you are eligible to apply. And so you need to be a youth-led organization. And here we're looking at young people between the ages of 18 to 35. And within an organization, we want to see that these are the decision makers within that organization. So that's a very key eligibility criteria, because this grant is for young people, by young people, with young people. So that's very a key criteria. And we're also looking at youth organizations that are formally registered or legally registered within your country. And so we're looking at organizations that have a history. We're not looking at organizations that will go and start up today so that they respond to this opportunity. And so you need to be formally registered. You also need to have a bank account, because your funds would be dispersed into an organization bank account. And then your proposed activity must take place in one or more of the 12 focus countries of this program. And those are the countries that we are mentioning: Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, Nigeria, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia and Somaliland region, Tanzania, Tunisia, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. So these are the 12 focus countries for this intervention, for this program. Even though we know that our advocacy work is going to touch the whole of Africa, that's the idea. But in terms of implementation, those are the 12 focus countries. And then lastly, just to talk about what we are offering for this grant, the budget that is available is between 30 and 50,000 euro. So you need to budget a minimum of 30,000 euro, a maximum of 50,000 euro. It can be above 50, it can be below 30. So you're budgeting within that range. And for this first year, we are going to give out 9 grants. So it's quite competitive. For the innovation grants, we're going to award 9 grants to the successful youth-led organizations. And the grant will be for a period of 12 months. And so we are looking at contracting from May 2025 to April 2026. And some of the things that are going to happen in the immediate after contracting will be an inception meeting that we'll have with the grantees around May. And then there is the Link and Learn event, which is, I think, the big highlight of the grantees. All the grantees in the first year across the 4 grant types will be meeting together. And we expect that this meeting will happen around November or December. And that it will bring together all the grantees from the 4 grant types, and also the consortium partners will be present, and it will happen in any one of the 12 African countries. This has not been decided yet, which particular country, because we also want to make sure that we align this event to, a continental event as well. So more information will be given around that. So thank you very much. My colleague will come in as we continue.
All right, thanks a lot, Rose. Really interesting. So now we're going to look at how you can apply, and I'm going to walk you through the ONGRIP platform. Susharita, can you go to the next slide, please? So at the like the system we built is you can only apply online. So you can get the registration link from the website. There is one thing that we really need to emphasize is that it's only one application per organization. So you have to make it count. And it has to go already from the moment you register. So we really advise everyone to look through the website, the frequently asked question, and the funding manual, so you can really see which grant is better suited for your organization. You can submit your application online through the portal, and we only accept applications through this portal. It helps us really like to keep things fair and transparent. We can track all applications we receive. We are sure that no document will be lost, and then also the review will be made directly on this same platform. And once you submit your application, you will be able to see the status of your application, to see like which moment of the review process you are in. So now I'm going to share my screen to show you an innovation grant. 1 second. My first screen. All right. Share. I hope everyone can see my screen. If you could just wave or something so I know, my colleagues as well. Yes, I think you can see. So how I get here? So I got here when I went on the AU. I added. So you go on the web page per grant, and then you click on at the end on the submit button, and then you have to fill in something to be able to register on the platform. Once you register on the platform, you can see you will receive an email like that from it looks a bit like a spam. It is not a spam. So just follow. It's an invitation to go on the ON Grip communities. So once you receive this email, you will appear here. You need to go in My Application. We also have, you can see that we have on the website, there is a specific page how to apply, and we took screenshots of the different steps, so it's really easy for you to find your way. So you go in My Application. Then you click on your application, so the innovation grant you want to submit. The detail here, you cannot fill. The system is filling in automatically, so you cannot change anything. So you don't have to try to do something here. You need to go directly in narrative. Once you're in narrative, you can choose your language because we accept application in English, French, and Portuguese. So for example, I can pick English here. You go next. And then you need to follow all the questions until the moment that you will finish, and then you will be able to submit. You cannot submit if any of the tiny red stars here are not filled in. So some questions are like a drop down. So for example, this one is really interesting, is to know from where you found the call. And what is really important is to look on the little eye, so you will see more information on what we ask you in the question. So for example, here is the brief summary of your organization. It's a maximum of 2,000 characters, and we are also informing you that if your proposal is succeeding and you will be a grantee, then this summary of your organization will be public. We will publish it on the website. So you can choose your area of work, if you're local, national, regional, international, the type of organization. It's important also to put the contact person you have in your organization, so we're able to reach out to you. As the grants are going for youth-led organization, it's really important to emphasize on how your organization is set up. So here we ask you a question on the number of employees below 35 years old that are really active in your organization, and also above. And if you can describe the governance structure, that would be really important for us to understand how the decision making is made. And of course, if you have an organigram, please submit it. The more information you can submit to us to understand how the setup of your organization, the better. Now, sorry. Now let's go to next. And if you forgot to complete, then you won't be able to go. So that's also something, like please pay attention. If there is like a red mark somewhere, it means that you forgot to fill in. I'm going to dummy fill in just to see how it looks like. So of course you certify for the innovation grants. As my colleague was saying, that the timeline for the project is May 2025 to April 2026. So you need to agree on that. And all the questions, the more you dive in the application, the more at first it will be through the organization, and then it will be more about the problematic you want to address, your project, what are the objectives, what is your theory of change, who are going to be the target beneficiaries. So you can really follow through. The system save on its own. So, but you need to, so if you want to say, for example, you're at the motivation, you need to write, and then you need to go through the other one. Otherwise, you might lost your last answers. And towards the end of the application, you will be asked, sorry, it's not. Towards the end of the application, you will be asked also to download some documents. Sorry, up. It's quite it's quite some question to answers. So then we will have, so here we ask for about risk management, and towards the end we really ask about, okay, I cannot go. Yes, so here we will ask you to really submit documents, so about your organization, also the budget. We will discuss the budget a bit later on, so I can show you where to find it. So at the end, it's all the annexes that are really crucial. So the organization, also we ask for reference check. Your policies, if you have any policies you want to in your organization, please send them in your application. It really helps us to understand the setup of your organization, and the work plan. There is no specific template for the work plan. So you're free to use any template that suits the best your organization, also your project. And that's about it. And one thing I wanted to mention is you can download here your application once it's filled in, but the download can also work before, so you have all the questions, and then you can also work offline with your colleagues. And that's about it. You would be good next, and then you need to certify. Obviously, if you don't certify, you won't be able to submit. The submit button is not at the bottom, it's a green button on the right up, as you can see on my screen. All right, I think that's about it for the tour. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we can go back to the presentation, Susharita. I'm sure we will have a lot of questions coming in. All right. So here's some tips. As I was saying, please pay attention to all compulsory fields. So like the one with the little red stars and the word limits. If you go over the word limits, then you can go back and shorten your answers, but you won't be able to submit if you go over. There will be an error message. Please upload all the required documents. You can include any policies, any supporting information that really will help us to understand the project, but also the organization. Double check, of course. And one thing we need to enhance is you cannot modify your application once it's submitted, but you can, since it's autosave, you can also wait a bit, before you submit your final application. But we would like to say that please avoid last minute submission in case there is an issue on the platform. It's always good to take maybe a day or two before the final submission. Next slide, please, Susharita. Yes, and I think that's you. Thanks a lot. And it's over to you, Susharita.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to launch another poll very quickly to see what you think of the ON Grip platform. If you can quickly fill it in. I also see there are a lot of questions in the question box about how to use the platform, some technical questions, and I do think we have a little bit of time to address those later. But just let us know what you think of ON Grip so far. This is also helpful for us to know because we do know that it's quite a complex platform, and if it is user-friendly, if it's accessible, that will also help us make it better in the future. Amazing. I see that most people have indeed understood the platform, and I see quite some indications that the platform is accessible. All right, I'll give it one more minute just in case. All right, I'm going to end the poll now, but thanks very much to everybody who filled it. It seems that I think at least a third or a little bit more than half of all of the attendees do feel that they do understand ON Grip, and quite some people have rated it between 5 and 7 on the scale of accessibility. That's really nice to hear, and please do keep the questions coming in. Thanks. Back to you, Rose and Alice.
Thank you, Sucharita. We can move to the second slide. Next slide. Okay. So I'm sure by now that's quite some information overload, but glad to just see from the polls there that there is understanding and that we are together. So as we are now starting to just look at some of the practicalities, I just want to walk you through what would make a successful application. Like we mentioned earlier that for innovation grants, we're going to sign up 9 applications, successful applications. So the competition is quite stiff. And these are just tips to help you as you are putting together your application and finalizing it for handing in. And so one of the main things which we have emphasized is that you should make sure that you are meeting the eligibility criteria. So in the funding manuals, you will see that there is a list of the hard criteria and also the soft criteria. Make sure that as an organization, when you're applying, you are meeting that criteria. That is very essential. You also need to make sure that you're clearly capturing the innovativeness of your project. So whether it's a new design, you are testing something that you want to put to scale, you are, putting together something that you want to improve that has been done in a different context, make sure that that is very clear what your innovativeness is. And again, ensure that it is linked to a global challenge. And then also, we want you to show us how your project benefits marginalized groups. And you will find in the funding manual, we have said we want you to define what marginalized groups mean to you, who are they within your context. So you need to really show that clearly. I already saw in the Q&A that there was a question asking about a particular community group. So those are the sort of things we want you to be able to define. We are not going to define that for you, but you need to define it and show it within your proposal, how your project will benefit the marginalized groups. You also need to show a very clear approach to ensuring the sustainability of your project results, essentially the continuation of activities after the grant period. Like we mentioned, the grant period is for 12 months, but we don't expect that after 12 months, everything comes to an end. So we need to see the sustainability of the project, how you are going to ensure that it will continue even after the official grant period has ended. You also need to show how your organization will work with and coordinate with others. This is an AUEU, project, and so there is need for that interaction. We also need you to show the relevance of your proposed project to the ambition of the fund. Again, I'll emphasize, please read through the funding manuals so that you are very clear on what you are responding to for the innovation grants. We ran through some of the key elements earlier, but the relevance will need to be very important. And just a few items in terms of just things you should be aware of. A warning if you want your application to be successful. So the focus on relevance to the AU and EU priorities is very important. Checking the eligibility criteria, make sure that you don't have any small errors, as this can lead to disqualification. And then avoid incomplete sections. Alice has walked us through the application form. You need to complete every section. So make sure that you run through and answer every question properly. And make sure that you are paying attention to the specificity of the content of the call. And because these are 4 different grant types, you need to be very clear which one you are responding to and what the specifics of that call are. With that, you will have a successful application and definitely be on your way to finding a successful application. Next slide. Okay, Alice will be coming through now and talking about the budget.
Yes, thanks a lot, Rose, for walking us through. Okay, so one of the also important for your application to be successful is to really have a strong and clear budget. So we have a lot of questions on where to find the budget template. So there is a budget template for each type of grant. You can find it in from page 9 and 10. It's where you can find the budget guideline and also the templates. You can submit your budget. There is also template in French and Portuguese, so you can also submit your budget in those languages. And we also reply already to some frequently asked questions. So please have a look to see you can find information while you're making your budget. So what is important is indeed to use the official budget templates because otherwise application without it won't be considered. The budget must be in euro. Of course, we understand that it's not your local currency, so you can include the local currency you're using and the exchange rate that is applied to be able to convert your budget in euro. One question we also add is that there is no strict cap on salaries and overheads. That was made on purpose because for each project and each organization had specific needs, and we didn't want to put a strict cap on it. But of course, you need to be reasonable and justify your costs because all expenditure that you put in your budget must be also linked to the project activities. So you really need to make sure to make the connection between the budget and your work plan and your application response. Everything is linked. And we advise you to be clear and precise because we need to be, the reviewer needs to be able to understand what are the costs you include to support the project. So you can please use consistent languages and especially make the parallel between what you include in your application reply, the work plan and the budget to be sure that everything is aligned, and it will really help the reviewer to not get lost in what you want to do with the grants you're applying for. Next slide, please, Sushaita. So here we put like some common budget mistake that we don't want you to do. Obviously don't include cost if you can't justify it. So there is on the right an explanation column. So please include explanation. When you budget, when you include a budget line, we ask you to be specific. So if you want to do a training for 3 days, please include trainer fee for 3 days on specific topic. So we understand exactly what you want to do with this budget line. On the frequently asked question, there is a specific question on ineligible expenditure. You can please review the funding manual, but also the frequently asked question. They are there as well to be sure that you don't include expenditure that actually cannot be funded. And please submit a budget that is that doesn't exceed the funding limit. So if you request 30,000 euro, please have a budget that match the grants request. And yes, one thing to avoid is to wait too long before you're making your budget, so you have the time to check your calculation and ensure that everything is aligned with your application. Next slide, please. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now we're moving to the next steps. And after this, we should be going through our Q&A where we can also take some questions. So in terms of next steps, we ask that you go through the website again, the frequently asked questions and the funding manual carefully because all the information is in there. Next. And also you need to register to the Power to Voices platform, and in there you will follow the AUEU Youth Lab community. I'm sure most of you have already joined that one. And then also we have the frequently asked questions, but we will again follow up on any questions and answers if we don't manage to answer them during this session. We have all the questions and we will definitely send through the responses. Just a reminder that for the innovation grants, the due date for the applications is 19 February 2025 at midnight CET. So please make sure your application is in on or before that time. And then the status of your application will be updated on the ON Grip portal. So you just watch out for that. Good luck to all of you as you finalize or start on your applications and send them through. Sucharita, you can take us through the questions now.
Yes, I see we have a lot of questions in the chat, specifically around access to the ON Grip platform. I know some people shared that they have either made an account but haven't been able to register, or that they've started an application and not been able to make changes to it afterwards. Alice, do you want to take that?
Yes, sure. So I think I don't have like common a reply that is generic for everyone, because I think some applicant may experience different issues. So if you have any issues, there is an email address that you can reach us to, and we have our IT colleagues that can help you out. Is the AUEU Action Lab email address. You can find it in the frequently asked question, but I'm going to put it in the chat. 1 second. I will put it in the chat. So that's one question. So you can, it's either if you cannot modify it, maybe because you have 2 accounts and that's not allowed. So maybe that's why your application gets stuck. If you try to change the detail in your application, that's not possible. You need to focus on the narrative part. So that could be another issues. And for the rest, please be precise when you reach out to us. You can also include some screenshots, so we understand more your problematic, because the more detail we have, the easier it will be for us to help you out. And I'm going to put the email address in the chat. So that's for the first question.
Amazing. Thank you, Elise. We also have a couple of questions on whether organizations with young entrepreneurs in companies or social enterprises or sole proprietorship businesses are eligible for this grant. So businesses, small for-profit companies, youth-led entrepreneurs that are not necessarily in an organization, if they would be eligible.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute. Rose,
okay, go ahead, Alice.
It doesn't matter. I think we will have the same answers. So not for this scheme, not for innovation, but for the entrepreneurship, social enterprise are eligible. So you please feel free to join the webinar this afternoon. The setup will be quite similar to the one we had this morning, but you will have more information on the entrepreneurship grant specifically. Do you want to add something, Rose, maybe?
No, I think you've tackled it well. So maybe just to again emphasize that you need to just read through all the grant types so that you are very clear which one you are best suited to. So when you're talking about enterprises, businesses, that might be more suited to entrepreneurship grant types. But again, just read through all the grant types so that you're very clear. You meet the eligibility for that grant type.
Thank you. I see a few more questions on what themes we are looking for So, for example, can the innovation be in the healthcare space or mental health, drug abuse and addiction prevention? Can it be a women-led project? Are there any specifications of what sector or what theme we would like the innovation grants to be working on?
No, no specific theme, and we've said it has to address a global challenge, and we've given some examples like a global challenge. You could look at the SDGs, for example. You could look, at the action plans, the youth action plans, maybe the EU action plans, and just see the themes there. But I think by saying it has to be linked to a global challenge, it cuts across anything and everything. And so, yeah, we're looking forward to hear from you what global challenge you want to tackle through the innovation grants.
Thank you. There's also a question on whether youth in universities can apply through their universities.
As long as you can meet the eligibility criteria in terms of, it's a registered organization, institution, as association, these are called different names in different contexts. So as long as you can meet that eligibility in terms of you're authentically registered, there is a governance structure in terms of the organization or the institution, you've got a bank account, you've got a history. If you meet all those eligibility criteria, then yes, you can apply.
Thank you, Rose. We also have questions around if it is possible to sub-grant as part of these grants, and if organizations are able to partner with local companies or other local stakeholders as part of applying.
Alice, I'll ask you to tackle that one.
Yes, sure. So Sharita, do you mind repeating just the beginning of the question?
Yes, if it's possible for organizations to either sub-grant to other local community-based organizations or to collaborate with like local companies in order to use an innovation of theirs.
Alors, I'm not really sure about using the fund with other companies. There is no restriction on how exactly you want to use the fund you receive. It has to be it has to be clear and really it has to be necessary to meet the objective of your project. So if there is a need to do for example some sub grants in the project, it won't be it could be a possibility. And if there is a need to have external partners as well, but it has to be crucial for the objective of the project. I'm not sure if you're if I answered the question correctly in the way they ask it, but I think that's what they meant, right? If there is any restriction on how they can use the fund.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Alice.
I think you covered it well, Alice. I just wanted to add also that I think the question also kind of touches a bit around, compliance issues. So whether if they do sub-grant, there are issues to do with compliance. So really, because this grant is for young people, we're trying to make it very youth-friendly as much as possible. So like what Alice said, as long as it's meeting, the objectives of your application and what you want to do. But of course, things to do with complying with regulations, those will come through when we do the contracts in the inception meeting, and we talk about how you would manage such scenarios. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Rose and Alice. We have quite a lot more questions. I'm trying to go through as many of them as we can. Is it possible to submit applications in Portuguese or French on the ON Grid platform?
Yes, so I also replied to one of the participants of the call. As I was showing my screen, you can choose the language. So we accept application in English, Portuguese, and French. The funding manual also can be accessible in those languages, and the budget template are also in these languages. So please feel free to apply in those languages if it's your native, if not your native, but if it's a language you're more comfortable with, please apply in these languages.
Thank you. I also see a question on how old should the organization be, or how much of a track record do they need to have to be able to apply?
Come again, Sucharito, sorry.
How old does the organization need to be, or how big does their track record need to be to apply? For example, there are organizations that are only just now going through the process of registering formally as an NGO. Are they eligible? And how much of a track record do they need to have to be able to be a good contender for the grant?
Yeah, so we don't have a time period that we put to it, but because we are looking, these are small grants which are being implemented over 12 months. So we are not looking to fund, startups. We want some form of history. It could be even a year. So we will assess each application on a case-by-case basis. But definitely, if they are only just starting and only registering now, they won't be applicable. Remember, on the hard eligibility criteria, we are already talking about an organization that is duly registered. So we're going to need your registration numbers and things like that. An organization that already has a bank account, which means it's already active. You already have, an active bank account. And when we look at issues of relevance and also taking things to scale, when you apply, you need to be already showing what you have done before, and also even with the governance structure. If you're only starting, you will find you probably still don't have like a board and things like that. So those are the I think the elements that we expect organizations to be looking at to check their eligibility there.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thanks a lot, Rose. And also to add specifically for the innovation grants, so it's not only, as you say, like an organization that is already duly registered and is active because they have a bank account, but also we're also asking for an annual budget or a grant that was managed in the past of minimum 10,000 euro. So it has to be an organization that has some experience, as you were saying. Thank you.
Are there specific M&E frameworks required for this application? Or what monitoring and evaluation components do they need?
No, I think the question on the application form there is just asking you to let us know how you're going to monitor your project. It's very youth centric. So we are asking the applicants to let us know how they are going to monitor their projects. So they give us what they have, what they use, and what they know.
We also have, sorry, I had a mishap with the presentation. We have also a question on someone from Somalia that wants to know, the grant eligibility list includes Somalia in brackets Somaliland region. Does this mean the grant is specifically for the Somaliland region or the entire country of Somalia, including Somaliland?
All right. I think so. What we meant here is it's both. It's the whole country and the Somaliland region. They Somaliland doesn't exclude application from Somalia and vice versa.
We also have a question about what happens if the board of an organization is slightly older than 35, but if a lot of decision makers within the organization are young people who actually implement and make decisions about programs.
Can you come again, Sucharita, on that question?
Yes, it was a question around what happens if some members of an organization in the board, for example, or the key leaders of the organization are just above 35, but members of the organization are still young people, and program leads and decision makers are all below 35. Are they still eligible to submit a grant?
Yes, we on the eligibility criteria, it does state the age, but also mentions that are decision makers. So it's really an interplay as well of your governance structure, and within the application form, there is room to further, detail how you are structured as an organization. And we will treat this case by case as well, because we do understand sometimes the mix up between youth led and youth focused organizations. In this case, we really want to be able to see a youth led organization. And we have just given briefly in terms of what we are looking for. So the age is quite a big issue, but also how the governance structure works and the decision makers within the organization. So please go ahead and still apply, and let's see what happens.
Amazing. Are refugee-led organizations eligible for this funding?
Well, as long as it's a youth-led organization, and the issue of refugee and so forth, I think that's covered under marginalized groups and what that means. So I would encourage that you be very clear on the eligibility, which we have articulated. That should give you an indication of whether you can apply or not.
Okay. I see also some more questions about the entrepreneurship grant. There will be a webinar later today to talk about the entrepreneurship grant very similarly to what we did today with the innovation grant. The details are available on the AUEU website, and my colleague Alice also just put it in the chat. So please do register. We'd love to see you there again. There we'll talk specifically about the entrepreneurship grant and the ways in which it's different from the innovation one. What if you have experience but have never received a previous grant? So if you've received donations from the public, but not necessarily a grant from a donor? Oh, Alice, you're muted.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. So it's not only grant that you manage, it's also the annual budget. So if you can also showcase that your annual budget was more than 10,000 euro per year, that would be possible. But that's just a matter of being able to showcase that your annual budget was higher than the 10,000 euro. That's one of the criteria to apply for the innovation grant.
And then what kind of documents are expected to be uploaded for the reference check?
It's entirely up to you. It could be even just a letter, letter of endorsement from any of your chosen referees. So it's really up to you what you want to share case and how the reference letter or document looks like.
Sorry.
Amazing. I think we still have a lot more questions, also around which countries are eligible. I think we have a question about if Ghana and Cameroon are on the list as well.
No, Ghana, Cameroon are not on the list. So the 12 focus countries, I think have been highlighted. I can just put them again on the chat. And also you will get this recording to just go through. In the funding manuals, it also clearly states the 12 focus countries for the Youth Action Lab. And I think when you also are applying, there's a drop-down list for you to select the country you are based. And so if you don't find your country there, it means it's not one of the 12 focus countries.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Rose. I see we have a lot of similar questions, and I think we've addressed a lot of the really big ones. Is it possible to cancel an application proposal or to change the application before you have submitted it? So if you started making an entrepreneurship grant and you instead want to submit for the innovation before you've actually submitted, is that possible?
So it is possible, but it means that someone in the IT department need to delete the application you don't want to submit anymore, so you will be able to start a new one. So for this, you need to reach out to us on the email address I put in the chat. Just try to be considerate and also giving the timeline also like to make sure that you have the time, because we will need a few days to process your request. And as I was saying earlier and also in the chat, please be really precise in what you need from us so we can help you out in the best way and as soon as possible.
Amazing. I do think we've gone through a significant number of questions. I know we haven't really been able to answer all of them, but as Alice and Rose shared, we will be going back through all of these questions and sending you an answer to all of the unanswered ones. I think we also had one last question on, am I eligible to apply even if I have received funding from an EU country for a part of the project that I would like to extend with this grant?
We would have to treat that on a case-by-case basis, but basically we have noted that if you currently received EU funding, then you shouldn't apply if it's the same activities and things like that. But of course, we would need to also see where the similarities are, what you mean. It's difficult to pick up just by the question itself.
Perfect. All right. In that case, I think we're nearing the end of our time. Alice, would you like to close?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for attending and for all all the fruitful really questions. We're still going to go through like the rest of the Q&As we didn't have the time to tackle. A lot of questions were quite similar, so I think we tackle most of them, but we will also publish the video. There will be you can access it from the YouTube channel of the AU AUEU Youth Lab. And also we will publish this presentation that we were showcasing to you. We did a few webinars on the different grants, and we're also working together with our colleagues, our consortium partner colleagues, on different questions that pop up specifically during the webinars, and we will publish them on the website. Please pay attention to the deadline. It's the 19th of February, midnight CTE, and best of luck. We're really looking forward to receive all your applications.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for being here, and thank you for taking the time to ask these wonderful questions. If you do have any queries, we have the email ID for the AUEU Youth Lab in the chat. If you have any technical troubles especially, please don't hesitate to reach out. The earlier you reach out, the easier it is for us to help you in time. Amazing. In that case, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. We're going to close the webinar now. Have a really good day.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you,
Cheers.
everyone. Cheers.